Have you ever had one of those moments where you think, if I were to die right now, I will live as the happiest person in the world? Metroid Dread brought that feeling back to me. I can't find the words to express how much joy I get with this game. Let me tell you the story of how I got into the series. Like almost every franchise I like, I knew of Metroid because of Samus in Smash 64. While she was not my favorite of the bunch, I thought, Metroid is a very cool guy. He killed alien and doesn't afraid of anything. Years later, when I was 8, I was shocked when I found out that Samus is a woman, and I found that awesome. Every character I liked up to that point was a man, so this made her even more unique. When Brawl released, I got my first shot at the series because the game had masterpieces. Small demos of some of the best entries in different franchises. And the Super Metroid one was my favorite. I instantly fell in love with it. But 3 minutes weren't enough to get a true grasp of the series, but at least it grabbed my full attention. Fast forward a few years once again, and the Metroid Prime trilogy releases, and I thought it was an excellent opportunity to get into the series. I rented it on Blockbuster when it was still alive. I must have been 11 or 12 years old at the time, and as stupid as it sounds, I played the 3 games at the same time. In a week, I got to Pendrana Drifts in Prime 1, defeated the Jump Guardian in Prime 2, and I think I got to Elysia in Prime 3. Not bad when I look back at it, but eventually my rent ended, I gave back the game to Blockbuster, and I never rented it again. So years later, the Wii U released. It got the Virtual Console, and I knew it was finally time. The first game I got was Super Metroid, and that's how I fell in love with the series. The genre in general. I adore the controls, the atmosphere, the sense of progression, the difficulty, the battles, the music. After Super Metroid I was craving more, and I was able to get Zero Mission and Fusion by some insane coincidence. After that I moved on to the Prime Trilogy. They were different, but they were still excellent in their own ways. Years later I saw the series resurrect with Samus Returns, as well as having Ridley and Dark Samus in Smash. I witnessed the insane passion of one fan with AM2R. I eventually got to play Other M after purposely avoiding it for so many years and finally, after a long time of adoring the series, Metroid Dread has arrived. I won't even put the clip. If you watch my react when Dread was announced, you could easily tell I've been waiting a long time for this game to happen. I counted the days, I watched every single trailer, I put my expectations to ridiculous levels, and it paid off. That's saying a lot, because even before its release, I didn't have a single doubt that this game would be incredible. Metroid Dread is a wonder created by Mercury's team, the same guys who work on Samus Returns. Yeah, I know that title is not everyone's favorite, but as you saw on that other Metroid video I have, I love it. I know it's the most flawed 2D entry, but I still appreciate it for what it did to Samus as a character, and because it introduced a lot of cool ideas that will be expanded upon. I'm interrupting this quickly to let you know. The video contains a few visual spoilers, so if you want to go fully blind, then leave the video on autoplay because it helps me after all. If the rest of you are okay with the visual spoilers, then you've been warned, so let's continue. That last part I mentioned is a good thing, because if I have to start from somewhere, it's on how Metroid Dread improves from what Samus Returns did. Think about the worst aspects from the latter. What are the first things to come to mind? A slower pacing, repetitive combat, and a linear structure. Dread not only fixes those issues, it also explodes the good aspects, surpassing everything the series has done before. As soon as I began, something blew me away. The feel of the movement. I don't know how they do it. I've always known Metroid for having excellent controls, but somehow it always manages to feel better with every entry, and Dread broke a new barrier. There was a perfect degree of flow combined with just the right amount of speed. Every action I took really felt like my own, and there was
was always this sense that I was always moving no matter what. This was achieved thanks to a few mechanics. The slide, which is pretty self-explanatory, and most importantly, the dash melee. This was one of the biggest problems with Samus Returns. Countering attacks was awesome, but in order to do that, you had to strike the enemy at the right moment while being standstill. This caused a lot of stop, counter, and shoot. Stop, counter, and shoot. With this simple change of countering while moving, Dread effectively acquired an extra degree of speed. You no longer have to stop at every obstacle to have a conversation. Now you obliterate the obstacle without compromising the pacing. And it's great because even if you miss that perfect timing, your dash melee can still interrupt attacks, or sometimes just kill smaller enemies. It also helps that they are not bullet sponges like before, so shooting them now is very viable depending on your situation. Also, remember the Chosu stations in Samus Returns that slow down the game so you could stock on health and missiles? They're back, but they don't feel like pit stops anymore, because they're actually faster this time around. And because if you kill an enemy by countering it, you get more drops, so you don't need to worry about constantly using the stations as long as you're skilled. And just when you think it can't get any better, you remember, that's just the beginning. Dread gets better the more you play it. The suit upgrades that also enhance your dash melee, the different beams that cover more terrain, or the screw attack that takes the game and just breaks it in half.
I'm kidding, I will never hurt this game.
Just like Samus Returns, Dread did an excellent job in making all your upgrades matter. Even if you get one that seemingly makes another one obsolete, the old one will never cease being useful. The newcomers on this entry are also incredible. I won't mention all of them, but Flash Shift? That is one of the coolest abilities they have put in any Metroid game. That's all I'll say. As you acquire more upgrades, you really get this feeling of being unstoppable both on speed and the overwhelming power you have. That might sound like it makes the game easier, but it's actually the opposite. I'll say Dread is just as difficult as Samus Returns, but here it feels more natural for a number of reasons. For starters, the enemy variety is actually great this time. I mentioned in the Samus Returns video that the game was guilty of recoloring pre-existing enemies and making them hit harder to keep the difficulty constant. Was it laziness? 3DS limitations? I don't know. But what matters is that Dread put a lot of effort on the enemy variety this time around. You have wildlife, robots, flying whales, warriors.
This giant enemy crab.
And with this variety comes a lot of danger. Because despite how invincible you can feel, one misstep is enough to see your health take a dive. It's important to learn what makes every area unique and what obstacle every enemy represents. And all that comes from the regular monsters. Because if we talk about the boss battles... Oh! These are the most creative, the most challenging, the most original, and the most fun boss battles I've witnessed in a Metroidvania. Every boss had my blood rushing, and after every battle I was shaking with excitement. Before I got the game, I made a status on social media saying, if the boss battles in Metroid Dread are at least half as fun as Proteus Ridley in Samus Returns, then it's already a guaranteed GOTY for me. And guess what? Dread is GOTY for me! That tells you everything you need to know about the boss battles! They're so fucking... And the thrill I get from a great challenge is one thing, but there was something more. It's called Metroid Dread, and you bet you're gonna feel dread! This is one of the most defining aspects of the game. They took that unique fear from Fusion and cranked it up to a new level. Throughout your adventure, Samus will come across the E.M.M.Is, relentless near-indestructible robots with unique abilities that will chase you down and won't stop until your death, which is easy for them to achieve. Did I mention they're insta-kill enemies if they touch you? There is a chance to avoid death after capture, but even the game tells you exploiting that chance is virtually impossible. The enemies are so frightening because even if you know where they are, they can still get a jump on you and can't tell where you are based on sound. Their chirping noises add so much tension, and when they feel your presence, you realize their AI is very competent as well as unpredictable. And even if you get more upgrades to escape more easily, that won't matter because every enemy will be more dangerous than the last. The enemies are an incredible addition that exists to enhance the experience, bring out a unique fear factor, and they don't overstay their welcome. On the contrary, I actually wanted them to be more prominent because of how much I enjoy their encounters. So that means the enemies are not everywhere. They are not Mr. X from Resident Evil 2, where he can appear almost everywhere, no. These robots only patrol specific areas, so you don't have to worry about them outside of their designated rooms, and you can take your time to explore the map and solve puzzles, which is something you should totally do because here's another asset. The map is incredible! I mean that in many ways. I consider the progression of Dread to be excellent, because aside from Samus already having perfect controls and speed, the map keeps this sense of challenge and constant progression. It never feels you're stalling and everything is set up according to your abilities, which is an achievement because it's almost as open as Planet Zebes in Super, and sequence breaks have already been discovered. Like any other Metroidvania, there are some instances where you get lost, and sometimes for cryptic reasons. Even Dread is guilty of those moments where your only obstacle to continue are a bunch of blocks that don't look any different from the rest, and then you feel like a fucking idiot for not shooting them before. But aside from that, progression is fluid and more simple than it seems. If there's no way back, all you have to do is experiment. If you get a new upgrade, search your map on where you can use it. If you find a teleportal, that is guaranteed to take you to the right place. Also, since I just mentioned them, at first I was disappointed because someone leaked that the teleportals were connected in colors. I found that stupid because Dread was taking the same archaic mechanic from Castlevania Symphony of the Night, where you can only fast travel in pairs. And it felt backwards because in Samus Returns you could fast travel to any station of the map without issue. But as I played, I noticed that this had a purpose, as all the teleportals were strategically placed on key locations where you can use your new abilities to continue without losing time. Even after that, I thought it would be tiresome to 100% the game, but I'll just say, if you want to gather every item on the map, don't worry, the teleportals will be your biggest aid. And here's what also surprised me. Planet CDR is massive. There were times when I look at the map trying to figure out what to do and I was like, oh, that place I wanna check is too far away. But because of the controls and the impeccable map design, I will get to my destination in less than a minute while having fun at the same time. And the map isn't just well crafted, it's also very recognizable and diverse. CDR isn't lacking in unique environments and set pieces. Every area has its own unique flavor, and some of them even change as you progress, making them all more special. My favorites have to be Ghavoran, the underground jungle, and Feneria, the Chozo Sanctuary. But every other sector was still a joy to explore and they all look great too. You know what was the most ridiculous criticism I heard about the game before its release? That it wasn't worth it because it looks like a 3DS game, so I thought. Don't you have to be stupid somewhere else? On trailers, the game already looked fantastic, but playing through it accentuated that even more. I love Planet CDR because of how well the areas look and because there's so much detail in them. The backgrounds are spectacular and as usual, there's that environmental storytelling that tells you so much without a single word. Every organism was well designed, the bosses were imposing, the enemy had this incredible flow in their movements, and Samus... she just looks so fucking cool! Unlike Samus Returns, Dread has a tendency to interrupt the game with conversations or occasional cutscenes, but I don't see that as a detriment. The conversations because they give you insight of your surroundings as well as useful tips, and the cutscenes because... they are just so fucking awesome! I'm fucking serious! Every time Every time the controller was taken away from me, I ended up screaming in excitement because the cutscenes were just so fucking cool. Don't even get me started on the cinematics you get when you parry a boss. It was a reward to do that just to see Samus beating the shit out of them. They were so good! I think of them again and I just... The sound design is also impressive for how much it enhances the experience. The background noise added to the atmosphere, the chirping from the enemies made their encounters more intense, and your weapons packed an enormous punch. For me, there's nothing more satisfying than going fast, parrying an enemy and WOO! Because everything you do feels so good, and the sound effects help on that. The only thing I found lacking was the soundtrack. It's not Other M, where there's barely any music, but I think Dread has one of the weakest ones. The best songs are remixes of previous games. Does that sound familiar? The new ones do their job in setting up a mood, but that's all they do. It's no Super, no Zero Mission, and definitely not Prime in terms of music quality. And as a final thing, without giving any details, I adore the story. I'm so happy they finally follow up on Fusion, and everything that happened in Dread felt natural, made a lot of sense, had a lot of fan service, and was perfectly executed. As a longtime Metroid fan, I am extremely excited for the future of the series. I don't think I need to mention this, but I can't recommend this game enough. There might be those who are unsure if it can be for them, and that's fair, so let me tell you what I believe. Dread is a bit tricky to recommend as an entry point. The opening gives you just the right amount of context to understand what's going on. But I think your experience can be enhanced if you play the other 2D games. If you don't care about story and lore, then we have the map. As I mentioned earlier, Dread is almost as open as Super. Not everything is very apparent, you're rarely told what to do or where to go, and sometimes you must rely on instincts or sheer luck to progress. If that's also fine with you, then there's the difficulty. Dread is not Dark Soulsian, as some people like to call it. The checkpoint system is very fair actually, and if there's one more thing I can praise this game for, is that it does a great job in explaining mechanics and giving tips to you. The loading screens can tell you about secret techniques like the ball spark. When you get a new upgrade, you get these mini movies that tell you what you can do with it. And occasionally, when you talk to Adam, your computer companion, he gives you useful information for the road ahead. But with that, it doesn't mean the game will pull any punches against you. Enemies are still very aggressive, and every single boss will put your knowledge and reflexes to the test. And if you die many times, nope, there's no super guide or a skip battle option. Don't expect any pity. Either you do it, or you do it. And don't get me started on 100%ing the game. These Shine Spark puzzles are insane! They will ask you to be fully familiar with your abilities, have a lot of imagination to solve them, and have pixel-perfect reflexes to pull them off. But oh, they are so fun to figure out. You should have seen me solving them. I was getting excited by finding their solutions. Here goes. 1, 2, 3. Whoa! If you want to get into Metroid, but the difficulty of this one scares you, there are other much shorter and easier adventures that are still incredible games in their own right, and tell you all you need to know about the series. I even have a video on it if you're interested. It sounds a bit like shameless plug, but I really want more people to get into this. The more fans Metroid gets, the better. It's insane! Mercury's team doesn't just have a perfect grasp on what makes Metroidvania so great, but it also understands what makes Metroid so different from the others, and why it is the mother of the genre. When I play Dread, I am always reminded why I love this series as much as I do, and this game takes the better aspects from other games and mixes them together. It has perfect controls and an excellent flow like Zero Mission. It brought back the new mechanics from Samus Returns, fixed and improved them. It has that open way to progress like in Super, has that unique atmosphere that defines Fusion, and still brings something new to the table. If you doubted Mercury's theme, Or if you hated Mercury's theme because you didn't like Samus Returns, I promise, I can assure your mind will totally change once you play Dread. If you were like me, who already felt Mercury's theme was more than capable of carrying Metroid, I guarantee Dread will blow you away. In case you've heard people say this game isn't worth it because I know they exist, know that they are ignorant, don't know shit about Metroid, are incredibly stupid, or all three of them. Because this game is. Because this game is.
Well, I have decided this part won't be scripted, so I'll just let you know what I feel right now. It's crazy, man! I remember when I first learned about this Dread project that never saw the light of day. I also remember when Nintendo rejected a Metroid draft by Next Level Games. But I especially remember when I first played Prime 3, and near the end there's this one Easter egg that says Project Dread is nearing its final stages of completion. And all of that upset me, because as I said on the Samus Returns video, I got into the series during a time where its future seemed unclear. A long time has passed since then, and now look! Metroid is finally back, man! And it did so by resurrecting the mysterious Dread project! That makes me so happy, not just because one of my favorite series has been given a new chance, but because Dread is a genuinely incredible game! I can almost say it's perfect! I had some high expectations, but somehow it managed to surpass them! Does it ever happen to you that you get so happy, so overjoyed that you want to cry? That almost happened to me with this game, and I even have proof of that.
I'm sorry, but you know how much I love Metroid, but it's I'm so happy. Sorry.
Some may call me exaggerated, but that's how I genuinely feel. What I find most impressive about all of this is how everyone had so much faith in this game. Nintendo in particular was constantly advertising it, like, what kind of timeline do we live in for that to happen? And it all paid off. Dread killed it on sales, and this tells us we can be optimistic about the future. I'll say it once again, Metroid is fucking back! Also, have you seen how fucking cool the Japanese commercial is?
Keep on moving, pushing my way, aim at the target. I'll make it all the way. Show me what you got. Metroid Dread.